So we have two great speakers, and I see they both have their camera on, which is great. Um, so our second session is university clubs, and I am excited to hear all the great accomplishments that both of these university club leaders will share with us. Um, University clubs have started off for some time across Canada, but with some regions being more successful than others. So as I mentioned, I am the Ottawa chapter coordinator, and we've been having great luck here locally. We do now have about three student clubs, one for Carleton University, one new one for Algonquin, another one for University of Ottawa. But University of Ottawa has been by far the most successful. And Cooper Lawrence, who is with us, I will introduce him in a few seconds. And as well, I know in Vancouver, they're very successful with university clubs and having students engaged in Tetra overall. We do have Kyle, who I've heard a lot about, very great things, but we have not met in person. So Kyle, who was part of the UBC Team Enable, I'll give a very quick intro to that. So UBC Team Enable is a student-driven club at the University of British Columbia. It consists of students from different engineering backgrounds, including mechanical, electrical, robotics, and biomedical. For the past 4 years, Team Enable has been working on Tetra projects, including an adapted video game, controller, and an automated blanket remover, as well as modified iPad holders, to name but a few. So representing Team Enable is a former member and graduate in mechanical engineering from UBC, Kyle Como. Kyle has been part of Tetra for 4+ years, has a passion for 3D printing, and while part of Team Enable, helped design a seatbelt indicator and automated blanket remover. He's an active member of the Vancouver chapter in the Tetra Society and continues to collaborate with fellow Tetra volunteers to complete projects. Kyle's introduction to Tetra is through his experience with Team Enable, and he is here to share his experience. So the University of Ottawa Tetra Club that I just mentioned as well. So students from the University of Ottawa's Tetra Club work together as they gain valuable experience designing innovative assistive devices for people with disabilities, addressing real issues in the field of accessibility. So the U of O Tetra Club is a fairly new club. I know this because of my time with Tetra in Ottawa, but they've been very successful, especially with the team that they have, and especially like the motivation and leadership that they show. So we have Cooper Lawrence with us. Cooper is a computer engineering student at the University of Ottawa. He is also the project manager for engineering design classes in the Faculty of Engineering at U of O. He's also the coordinator of the U Ottawa Tetra Club. And he's interested in all things related to design and product development. So you'll hear from both quite a bit in our session. So what I'll do is, I think it's best we could start off with Kyle. Kyle, you can give us your background and experience with UBC Team Enable, and then we'll go off with Cooper and to share his experience and the team's success, feedback, and just basically everything about a university club, because I know there are also chapter coordinators with us who hope to start university clubs in their regions. So regarding timing, don't worry about that. I'll be the one to kind of flag you or let you know. Say we could have about 10 to 15 minutes for each person to have that individual sharing of their feedback to everyone. Then we can have time to questions for everyone in the audience to just facilitate a discussion. So Kyle, why don't you take it away? I believe you're co-host in here. You have some rights to do things. Okay, go ahead.
Thanks, Sarah. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, great, thanks. Yeah, I'm on my phone, so
Oh, no
wasn't
worries.
sure.
Okay.
Great. Yeah, for sure. Well, thanks for the introduction. Yeah, like you said, I've been involved with Enable for 4 years, well, 3 years. before that, I was on other student teams doing design and development for chemical engineering purpose. But one of the reasons that I joined Enable, or actually started Enable, was because I enjoy helping people, and I really love projects. And along the way, trying to find more projects, we found the Tetra Society through just networking with the public. I thought I would just start off with just giving some of the benefits of the Tetra projects through our student team, which was Enable. And then we just kind of parallel some of the benefits of the project that I was mainly involved in, and that was the blanket mover. And then just some of the other benefits of the student team being involved with the Tetra Society. So if that sounds good. One of the main things with Enable being involved with the Tetra Society and doing these projects was just a positive impact on the community. Sometimes one of these projects, even though it's specific for one person, like the blanket mover, you find out that that could be very beneficial for other people. These projects require thinking outside the box, so they're really good projects for students to be involved in. And the third is there's a lot of engineering involved, actually, which is really cool. So the blanket mover, for example, the person didn't have a lot of mobility. They could move their fingers and their eyes, and that was it. So what they wanted at night was a blanket, a device to move their blanket so they could control their body temperature at night while they're sleeping, and they didn't have to call their care rate every time. So when you look at this project, it involved optimization, keeping it simple yet very functional. So like I mentioned, they only had slight movement in their fingers. So you had to come up with a control that felt good, that worked as well with their finger movement. And it had to move the blanket off them safely in a way where the user felt comfortable. So it was very cool that way. You really had to think about that, integrating the motor control, where the motor would be, where the mechanics would set for the arms that move the blanket. There's definitely some structural analysis there, making sure that the device doesn't flip over when it's moving. And some of the other benefits of these kind of projects is you learn project management skills, dealing with the other students on the team. So one aspect of it was there was actually 6 or 7 of us working together. I was the lead designer for the mechanics, and I had about three other students off and on helping me with making the different components. So linkages, the shafts, the bearings, and then we had the motor control aspect of it. So motor speed, the motor driver, the controls. We also had the box that housed the motor. It required ventilation. So, and then also the interpersonal skills involved with the team and working with the end user and the end user's caretakers. So it was cool that way. Let me see some other benefits of the Tetra projects. Outside of the blanket mover, if you're going to start a student team, there's other opportunities with the Tetra Society is more accessible projects. Sometimes the student team projects or stuff that Marcus was talking about, the projects are quite complicated or maybe they're difficult to complete. And what I found is that through going to the meetings with the Tetra Society, which is only once a month, you can take on projects like cup holders or monitor mounts or some of the stuff you mentioned that's more accessible for maybe first-year students or even just fourth-year students who didn't have opportunities to do projects along the way. Maybe they were focused on academics. So the Tetra projects are great for accessibility that way. And another benefit of the Tetra Society projects was the reduced project risk. So when a student team is going to work with the Tetra Society, there's experienced Tetra volunteers that will work with you to help ensure that what you're doing is safe, that the communication is clear, and to help you complete the project. I thought that was very nice when we were there. Let me see. I have some notes. How long have I been? Do I got 5 minutes, Sarah? Or?
Yeah, you can have 5 minutes.
Cool. Okay. I got a little bit off track, but Some of the other student team, like starting the student team with Enable at UBC, you have to get funding for projects. And then one of the benefits with the Tetra Society was that the Tetra Society helps pay for the project or will pay for the project. So when you start a student team, you usually have to fill out a lot of paperwork indicating how much your project's going to cost and how you plan on acquiring that money. So when you're doing Tetra projects, you know, it can range from $5 to maybe 500 or more, depending on the project scope. So the Tetra Society will help pay for that money. And what that allows you to do is get funding to help support maybe buying a 3D printer for your student team, or just tools in general. Most student teams start out with very little, or like every school probably has a different situation. So for us, when me and 3 other students started Enable, we joined up through the biomedical engineering student team, also known as part of UBC. So we kind of piggybacked with their student team to get started, and then slowly acquired our tools so that we could do our projects. So the Tetra Society was good for helping us get some projects going, because we did not have a lot of money to start with. Well, we had no money. So yeah, I don't know. Is there anything else, Sarah, that you think I could talk about that would help or get more in depth in?
I guess I know we're saving questions till afterwards, but I know that you guys had a lot of success with UBC, like University Club. How did you feel was best to keep the club afloat with continuous volunteers and because year after year, like students finish school, so how do you prepare to? Because I know the UBC club has been there for a while. I think more so than any other club. Um, well, I know you're kind of out of school now, and but how did you manage, or what feedback or motivation did you give the students that were coming after you to maintain the club?
Okay, yeah, no, certainly. That's a really good point. One thing is at UBC there is a student handbook. So I think it's a really big handbook, probably 100 pages or more. That if you're going to start a student team, that you go through and you think about the starting of the project, how you're going to finish the project. The senior members of the team, like you said, will graduate. So what is your plan to resolve that? So they actually have you produce a document, a full report of how you're going to manage your team and the success of your team in the future. And is your team just a one-off project? Like the blanket mover, for example, was your one project. Is this for a competition or not? And what are your plans in essence? So for us, the year before you graduate, you would take someone under your wing, or maybe 2 people under your wing, and help explain the tasks and work in parallel with them so that they understood what it was like to reach out to different societies to find projects, or dealing with clients. For us to gain members, we did interviews after our first year. Sometimes people join because they like the idea of being on a student team, but they're not necessarily motivated to do a lot, or they don't appreciate their workload in school. I mean, engineering is very demanding. So we would assess that in an interview process to make sure that when people came on, they had a reasonable workload, and then we're willing to put in, 5, 10, 12 hours a week, depending on what they wanted to do, and then place people accordingly. So those are kind of the basic in and out processes we followed.
Okay, that sounds good. It's good feedback. Um, I guess now we could pass the floor over to Cooper, and then afterwards we could share a full-on discussion floor. So Cooper, take it away.
All right. Hey, everyone. Can you hear me all right?
Yes.
Perfect. Perfect. So my name's Cooper. I'm the coordinator for the Ottawa Tetra Club. A lot of the stuff that I'm going to say is, very similar to what Kyle's gone over already. But I think there's a few extra stuff that we could share. And some cool, unique things that we have going on here in Ottawa that I think are great for our club. So we only started our club officially a little over a year ago, so still relatively new. But here at the University of Ottawa, we're not new to Tetra at all. So we've been running a variety of engineering design courses within the Faculty of Engineering, and we've been using projects from Tetra for this for years now, probably going on 4 years. So, starting a Tetra club was really just the natural next step for a lot of students that might have taken the course, done a project in the area of accessibility, and kind of had the hook set and wanted to do a little bit more. So it was a really big draw for students to be able to work on projects with their peers, work with real clients, work with other Tetra Ottawa volunteers, and get good work experience that also looks good on a resume. I know I've spoken with some previous employers in the past, and they think that it's a great way to get experience doing real work and actually interacting with people. So when we started our club, obviously we were already familiar with Tetra and how they liked to run things. And just like Kyle mentioned at UBC, there's a very long process for starting clubs or teams at the University of Ottawa. So we tried to find a way that would streamline that process as efficiently as possible and kind of remove all the extra administrative overhead that is typical with more social-oriented student clubs, but aren't really tailored much for teams. In our case, not a competition team, but still a project team in general. So what we did was we actually partnered with the Faculty of Engineering, specifically the Center for Entrepreneurship and Engineering Design, SEED, as you can see here. So what this did was it allowed us to have access to not only faculty support for our club, but also access to things like funding, mentorship from professors, and all the way down to a variety of design spaces that we actually have on campus. So students have access to physical machine shops, mills, lathes, things like that, 3D printers, laser cutters, everything that they would need to actually physically construct their project is available on campus, which really helped out a lot when it comes to budgeting projects. We don't need to try and find either new resources to purchase or having to outsource any of our design process. So that's something that's really helped us get the upper hand on projects. So I had mentioned at the start that we have a variety of engineering design courses. So the club itself might turn out a couple of projects a year, not too many. We're not that large. We range anywhere from 6 to 12 students at any given point. But with our design courses, we're able to bump up the project completion significantly. So right now this semester, we have probably over 24 student groups working on projects that we've sourced through Tetra and just other organizations or clients that we've gone out and found on our own. So we've really been able to carve out a big chunk of potential projects in the National Capital Region and really try and get as many done as possible. So some of them take longer than others. Some might need 2 semesters. Maybe it's done the first time around, but there wasn't really enough time for the proper amount of iteration. So another student group will pick up the work and keep going. But in the most part, I think clients have been quite happy with what we've been able to provide over the past few years. So for anyone who is looking to start a Tetra club, another thing Kyle mentioned was student commitment, and that's something that I don't want to say struggled with, but it's just something that's been at the forefront of our issues when it comes to project completion or the time it takes to complete a project. Obviously, everyone's excited to work on a potential project or join a club or a team at the start of the semester. And then by the end, when they're swamped with midterms and exams and projects worth marks, they might not be able to commit as much time as they had originally hoped. So trying to find a good process that will both be inclusive to any students who want to join, but also be able to accurately identify people's level of commitment is probably the most difficult thing that we've had to face, to be honest. You know, doing interviews is great. You know, we have sit-down meetings with any new students, get to talk to them a little bit about the club, talk about their background, talk a little bit about what we would expect from them and what they would expect from us. And you know, a lot of the time it I don't want to say dissuades students, but at least it makes them realize that maybe they're not quite ready for what they're about to take on. Because at the end of the day, you know, these are real people who are relying on us to get something done. So we don't want to end up falling through for them. You know, it's unprofessional and it just doesn't feel very good. So we try our hardest to sort that out before projects actually get started. So I've spoken before with some other student clubs. Obviously, working within the Faculty of Engineering is quite popular, just due to the diverse background that people will have to be able to work on mechanical projects and electrical projects, and just, you know, thinking the right way, so to say, to complete projects efficiently. But we do encourage students here at the University of Ottawa to join our club, even if they're not in engineering. We'll accept anyone who wants to work on a project, even if they have no prior knowledge or hands-on skills that they'd be able to use. You know, we think everyone brings a unique viewpoint to the problem. Everyone empathizes a little differently. And honestly, having that diverse background to come up with solutions, I think is a much more important aspect than capabilities of actually manufacturing. You know, that can always be figured out some way or another, even if it means finding additional students who are just willing to machine parts for us, or willing to do CAD modeling or soldering or anything like that. And it's something that I encourage not just other student clubs, but just chapters in general to explore, try and branch out a little bit with who they're recruiting to work with them. Let's see. So yeah, one more thing that I'll bring up regarding our club that might be a little different from how others operate, and I think it's definitely a little different from how most Tetra chapters operate. We don't really hold any monthly or bi-monthly club meetings. We like to keep everyone working well within their group, you know, socializing within their teams, working on their projects. But other than, you know, potential recruitment nights or maybe a special event that would be of interest to club members, we actually operate as a quite dispersed club. To be honest, it's possible that team members working on 2 different projects may never actually see each other or interact with each other, which it's a bit of a shame, but at the same time, due to everyone's complex schedules, it's sometimes a bit much to ask to let alone have the team meet as a group, but also to have everybody in the club meet together. And it's a bit of a revolving door. Like I mentioned at the start, we might have students join us for a semester, maybe 2, and then move on to something else. or some might be interested in hanging around a little bit longer, even if they're not necessarily working on a project, but just staying in the loop with the club. And some may leave and come back sometime later. Everyone's schedules are quite changing. We've had some students that might not have been able to work on projects during the normal school year, but will stay in Ottawa for co-op and just take on a project as a evening and weekend commitment. So in that sense, it's quite flexible, quite flexible. I think that's most of the things that I wanted to bring up. Obviously, quite a lot of overlap, things differently. Everyone does things differently administratively. Every university is a little bit different. So I'd be happy to answer any questions if anyone has any.
I do have a few, but first, if anyone on the presentation wants to ask questions, just go ahead. Or if it comes to you, we still have some time. So if anyone has a question, just go ahead, Paul.
Yes, Cooper, thank you, and Kyle, for your presentations. Very good. The one question I have doesn't pertain as much to the student club, because you keep working on a project right through to completion. But I'm fascinated by some of the projects, like the 24 you mentioned, that are being done by the students as part of their coursework, and Tetra has had a number, in front of you to do. These end up with some very creative solutions and some prototypes that have great potential, but in a sense they're completed, the project report goes in, the information is recorded, and I'm just wondering, does the university maintain a database, an accessible database for that kind of information, or should it be on a Tetra database with sort of a what you might call it, a proviso that this needs further work, because these ideas shouldn't be lost.
No, definitely, I agree. We do maintain a rather comprehensive database, and in the event that a project might be lacking in content, we have contact info for the groups that worked on them, and I can actually give you a link here. It's called, let's see, called Maker Repo. I'll post the link here in the chat. So that's a link to every project that we've done for our design courses and Tetra Club, all in one place. I think there's a total of 15 pages worth of projects, maybe 9 or so per page. So this kind of acts as a launching off point for a lot of projects that students are working on. Because let's be honest, there's a lot of projects that overlap. Lots of cup holders, lots of tablet holders. Most projects can be adapted from something that already exists and tailored to the individual client. And in the event that something doesn't already exist in the database or in some other sources like the Tetra National Database, then students are free to let their creations and imaginations go wild.
Right. No, it's some very good work being done, and certainly by the club and by the students as part of their courses. So good success in the future.
I have a question, but if anyone else has a question on the line, and if I'm asking too much or talking too much, just please click on the raise hand and I'll notice that.
Hi, Zara. Sorry, just a quick question. This is David.
Go ahead.
Who do you create the devices for? Are they people in the community, or are they for students with disabilities?
So at the University of Ottawa, we do both, to be honest. We work with clients out in the community, and we also work with our local assistive learning department here at the University of Ottawa to source projects from students on campus. So anything from potentially adapting residence dorms to be more accessible, to finding alternative ways that students can access course content. Right now, a lot of the ways that students might have to access course content is with a, essentially partner that they work with throughout the semester. So someone in the same class as them that will be willing to maybe take notes or record lecture slides and things like that, when really there's good ways to do it on their own.
That's great to hear. Yeah, I know that many universities have these accessibility offices. So yeah, if your student club connects with them, I mean, that's just another venue for sources. So thank you so much.
Yeah, no problem.
I think for UBC, it's the same. They do projects for Tetra or clubs in the community, or, it's wide open. So.
Yeah. I've been to the UBC one because my daughter makes use of the accessibility office. So, but I'm not so sure if they know about it. So I should bug them. Thanks.
Yeah.
Thanks, Kyle.
Sounds good.
Yeah, so just a little bit in that same topic, there's a lot of resources that we have just on campus that could really benefit with our partnership, and they don't even know we exist. I've spent a lot of time in the past year just reaching out to various departments on campus and just trying to get to know as many people as possible that in the future could send us an email regarding a request. And not even just students, like staff members as well on campus that might be looking for something for themselves or coworkers and things like that. So right now we've actually got a project on the go with our library. So we're working with our accessibility librarian on campus to come up with a accessible library map. So right now students walk into our library, it's multi-story, and by the elevators of the first floor, every single floor is listed with the content that's on it by topic. And unless students can either read that or find their way to the main desk, they'll have no idea where to go. So we're trying to find some way to put like Bluetooth beacons around the main floor so that students can walk around with a cell phone and have these beacons automatically read out either onto the screen or via text to speech where they can find certain resources.
Hey, Paul had his hand up.
Yes, the question that I had relates to some of the opportunities that have been developed through hackathons. I think that these are a great way of engaging, the public and the university. I remember, I think there was one organized through your group just recently, and it attracted 5 or 6 different clients, and students could then say, yes, I'd like to be engaged in helping out with that over even a weekend. But I think it's a way of creating a broad range of interest, and you could extend this into the community, because I know a number have been run on medical topics. Like hospitals have said, okay, we have these problems, here's the weekend, let's go at them. And it's amazing, as I found out from your creative students at Ottawa U, there's a lot of brain power bringing team together to tackle something, even on a weekend. So I would suggest that kind of promotion. That may answer some of the questions that David had, was about, how do we make people aware?
Yeah, that's true. Last September, we hosted that. And yeah, we just had a variety of clients that were willing to join us for the weekend, and we had students and staff members from the university come out, spend the weekend with us, and work on some projects, hackathon style, trying to go as fast as possible, maybe find the breaking point of their idea as fast as possible. And I think a few of the clients actually walked away with some pretty good completions.
That's really nice to hear. I I really like that. It's something I've been mentioning for a while. Is especially at the university clubs, uh, the university student club outreaching to the student body or the any department on campus to try to solve issues and provide solutions for accessibility issues on campus. So in a way, like students resonating or becoming aware of how other students at the same stage in their life who are also trying to complete degrees and trying to get out in the real world to see what issues that the university and how the university can be more accessible. I think I think it's a really great push. I was wondering how what is the feedback of students in the clubs? Um, are they more intrigued to tackle on projects in the university campus, um, or more intrigued to take on requests that come in from the local community?
I guess I'll talk a little about that first. I I think that students would find it uh, quite rewarding to help out fellow students and staff members on campus. The University of Ottawa is a big place. You know, we're quite a large organization. When you were, if you were to think about how large a typical company might be, we have quite the range of people with various backgrounds, and being able to keep that local, I think is great. Now that being said, the number of projects that we get actually on campus compared to out in the community is quite small. I don't know if that's just because the number of projects just generally is that small, or more likely it's just there's not enough outreach and not enough people know about us. It's kind of the endless battle trying to let people know that we exist and we're there. But I think being able to do more on campus in the future would be great.
I believe Nicole had a question in the chat. She asked that you have an interview process before recruiting a person to the club or volunteer. What would you make them? What would you turn? When would you turn someone away? I guess this question can be for both of you guys, Cooper and Kyle.
I guess I can start. Usually we shortlist it. So at the beginning of every school year at UBC, we have oh, it's been a year or so, so I'm not remembering, but it's like an open house. So on all the walkways and going to all the different buildings, students can set up booths and share what their club's about and try to promote people to come to it. And so all the new students have an orientation, so they're brought through these booths, and then the preceding years, second, third, fourth, they know of this, so they'll come and check out the booth. So what we do is we'll share information there and say we're hiring or looking to bring in new students, set a date, people will fill in applications. But as for turning people away, usually we just see their summary. Like we ask for a cover letter and a quick resume of their experience, and usually it's just, does their cover letter say, like, why do they want to be on the team? Is it to help people, or the interest? What's their background? What are they trying to get out of the team? And sometimes people, you can tell it's more of a copy paste thing, and they didn't really put a lot of attention to detail in it. And you can usually shortlist it pretty quickly. So once you have a short list of whatever if you're trying to get 5 or 6 members and you have 20 resumes, usually you don't get too many. And then we email them, and then sometimes too we'll also do an open house within the club. So everyone that's doing projects on the student team will actually present what they're doing to the people that were interested on that first open house day. They'll show up to that as well, and it's like another opportunity to make sure that the interested students can see what we're doing and go, yeah, I'm actually really interested in that, and then they can maybe fine tune their application. So I know I kind of zigzagged a bit in my explanation, but that's usually how we get there. And then when the applications come in, we'll look through them and look for people that are passionate and put some time into it, shared a project with us. Maybe they had some pictures or past experience, or how are they relating to our team and how do they fit? And then we do interviews on the short list, and if it's a good conversation and you feel like you can work with these people, or you have a good time, and they're interested and their schedule is reasonable, and yeah. So there would be 4 leads, so we would have 2 leads interview a person, and then we'd break it up between the different leads, and then we'd have a meeting afterwards with all the leads and discuss all the different applicants.
Okay, so basically a very intimidating interview process.
Yeah. Basically what Cooper experienced, we experienced. We have a lot of people join and they take on projects, take tasks, and it just doesn't get done. And it doesn't feel good to try to put a lot of work on one student. So the leads in our team really tried to delegate and manage the team so that everyone could contribute, and we had a good group, and it was a good experience all around. Yeah.
Okay, so basically now from past experience, you intimidate them at the interview process, see if they can handle it, and then you're like, they're a good potential.
Yeah. And they know what's coming, because open house, we talk about the projects, we get the interest, and then we'll do like the second open house when they show up again, and we'll do presentations ourselves, which is also a great experience as a student team, as the members. And at that point, it's like, yeah, like we actually want to see your interest. Like, please write about yourself, write about your projects, tell us your passions, why, and this is what we're about. So we're all going to be working together. Yeah, usually it's fairly easy picking out who's going to be there. You usually know who you're going to interview before they,
All right.
show up. So, yeah.
Thank you, Kyle. Cooper, I'm sure you want to add to that.
Yeah, I'll add a little bit. Obviously, a lot of the stuff that Kyle mentioned is the same with us. We have club fairs at the start of our semesters. We have new students, existing students come and visit us. We have recruitment nights that we'd give just a little presentation about the club, maybe some previous projects, have some members talk about what they've done. But to be honest with you, Nicole, I've never turned anyone away. We do things a little bit more casually. I like to just do a little sit down chat, maybe over coffee, maybe in one of our design spaces with potential new members. Just kind of learn a little bit about them, see what they're interested in, why they want to join the club. And I've never turned anyone away, but I've definitely had people that themselves said after the meeting, I don't think I'm ready for this or capable to do it this semester, but would definitely be interested in the future. And it's worked pretty well so far. I mean, it sounds like Kyle's still getting a little bit of commitment problems as well, which you just can't get around, I guess. But for the most part, I think when you're making the team of 4, maybe 5 students, there's enough that in the event that one person might have to drop out, maybe even 2, they can usually still get by. And if one team member might not be pulling their own weight, the rest of the team is usually able to whip them back into shape. They set their own deadlines, they set their own schedules. We try and keep things a little bit hands off so that they can work on things at their own pace. Maybe students want to work on something, but they're still busy in the semester. Well, it just means that the project's going to take a little bit longer. So I don't think that people should be denied the opportunity to work on something if they're still busy. But at this point, everyone's an adult, so I think they can get a good idea for what they're capable of doing.
Thanks, Cooper. I guess that's nice to hear that you don't turn anyone away and you give them that experience. But I guess if they don't do the work, you pick up the slack, right?
That's usually what has to happen, right? Someone's got to get it done. So
yeah, I think we need to give you a Student of the Year award.
Student of the Year, yeah. Don't look at my grades.
No, Tetra is a non-judgmental group. So we do have a few more minutes. If anyone has any questions that they'd like to ask before we close off. But I see Glenn is here as well. So we have a few minutes. I do see that Marcus has a question. His hand is up. Marcus, do you want to go ahead?
Sure. Hi, Kyle.
Hey, Marcus.
But this is a question for Cooper. And sorry, I had to step away for a while, so I wasn't here for the whole thing. Maybe you covered this. At University of Ottawa, can students take projects that they're doing with their student team and get course credit for them?
So long story, yes. Short story, not easily. So we do offer that as a elective. If students are working on, let's say, one of our competition teams, maybe our Formula Car team or some of our robotics teams, they can actually take a fourth-year elective that lets them get credit for that. But we don't currently have that set up within the Tetra Club. What we do have, however, is the ability for students to get a co-curricular record added to their degree. So students are able to record time spent working on projects, meeting with a client, anything project-based. And when they graduate on their degree, it says that they volunteered X number of hours working with the Tetra Club. And it's just another extra little something that we can do to say thank you to them.
Okay, thank you for that.
Thanks, Marcus. I believe, Glenn, you have your hand up, so go ahead and ask your question.
Great, thank you very much. Thank you, Kyle and Cooper. I didn't have my picture up on the screen, but I was listening through your presentation. Thank you for that. In terms of both your involvement, I believe that you've both been involved through engineering clubs that were already established. Is that correct?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Both of you, yeah, okay. So I guess maybe just a comment on, I guess well, I'll let you guys comment first and then I'll follow up on it. So just for your guys' background, I ran a project through the GTA and we started a lot of our clubs from scratch because not all the schools we were in had engineering clubs already established. So that was a difficult route to go, and I just wanted to get your feedback, just mostly for the people listening that may want to open a Tetra project at their university, Tetra Club. How does the transition work from, I don't know if you guys go as formal as having a chair of your club, and do you transition from year to year to different chairs, or it could even be a there might be a student chair, but there also might be a faculty advisor. And so have you got any tips, or how do you guys work through the fact of following through from year to year as students graduate and still keep up with the new student chair, a new faculty advisor, and still keep the club going strong?
Well, I can say that a lot of those problems, like changing club leadership, we haven't actually had to deal with yet because I've been the founding member since the start. It is something though that we're going to have to look at as I'm set to graduate at the end of this academic year. So I would assume that it's probably going to be a process similar to what Kyle mentioned earlier about just taking someone under their wing, giving them the ins and outs about how things are run, maybe introducing them to other chapter coordinators and potential clients. But otherwise, we looked at starting the club kind of officially through the university's general club creation process. You know, if you wanted to make anything from, let's say, a rock climbing club to a chess club, you know, things like that, that's the process you would go through. And while it would have worked, it wasn't really built for a team working on projects. You know, it's just a lot of administration, things like having, you know, a president and a vice president, and you need to have someone in charge of finances and social events and things like that. And that just wasn't really going to work for us. So we just found a faculty advisor within Faculty of Engineering that was willing to work with us. I guess just similarly, if you were to try and maybe find someone to supervise you for a master's project or something like that. And that streamlined the process quite a bit. You know, on paper, we are just a competition team. Same thing if you were to try and start a car racing team on campus. The difference is obviously non-competitive, so trying to find things like funding isn't necessarily as big of a problem. But yeah, does that answer your question?
Yeah, no, it definitely did. And so in your situation, you know, I'm glad you mentioned the other, looked into starting the other club, but it was a lot of details, a lot of things that you maybe didn't want to get involved with. So did you go and find a faculty advisor then afterwards?
Yeah. So it's the way that our club got started was maybe a little different than some of these other clubs that would get started, where, you know, someone's interested in making it. Maybe they have a group of students that want to participate, and then they need to go out and find the means to do it. It was kind of the other way around for us. You know, we were already running our engineering design courses. Students were already taking it, working on projects, and wanted more, right? So already from within the faculty, we already had, you know, professors that were working with us for those courses, and they already agreed to work with us for the club. So that streamlined the process quite a bit. But I would imagine that the process would be similar if you were to try and start something from scratch.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
I can add a little bit to.
Go ahead, Kyle.
Yeah, so actually our student team changed directions many times. Enable wasn't, like, I started Enable with a few other students. Originally, we wanted to do prosthetics, get into robotics and augmentation to assist people in mobility, maybe with feeding themselves or different devices. And we filled out the whole application, got an advisor, filled out the funding, the equipment, the tools, and spent 3-4 months formalizing what we thought we wanted to do. So that's kind of how we got together as a group, more on the robotics side. And through trying to find projects for our team, we actually, sorry, let me backtrack a bit. When we put all this work together, we found that because there were so many students, it was quite difficult to join. I think there was like a dozen or more that had just formed before we thought we would do it, and there was no space for us. So we actually piggybacked with the biomedical engineering student team BEST at UBC. So that's one way a group of students could start, is just by going, hey, we're a group of students interested, or if someone in faculty was interested in doing Tetra projects, just piggyback an existing maybe biomedical related student team and just say, hey, we'll have some students that do Tetra projects. So yeah, and then they already have a faculty advisor. I found at UBC, the faculty advisor is like someone they're formal to, I mean, you can reach out to them, but wasn't the most difficult part for us. It was going through the paperwork to start the team, but like Cooper mentioned, with the Tetra projects, for example, you're not doing a competition. You don't fill into like a Tetra club doesn't really meet the requirements of a competition team or like a brewing team or like whatever it is. When the project's done, it's done. You start a new one. Realistically, if you had a faculty advisor, I I could just volunteer for the Tetra Society as a student or just as a person in society. And just ask students if they wanted to help me on my project, and boom, you have a Tetra Club. I think it could be that simple. Getting the recognition that Cooper mentioned on your degree is fantastic. If Enable is doing that or not. I've been away and I've graduated over a year ago. But I think it could be very simple. Just a matter of going to the meeting. Now it's wireless, right? It's online, so it's very easy to get involved that way. Tetra Society, as I mentioned earlier, there's usually volunteers that have been involved for a long time. And with my first project, which was the blanket mover, David Spears, one of the volunteers, he came with me, I believe it was that one, and went through the project with me, made sure that I was competent to do it. I was comfortable with like the end user having the arms moving above them and just talking to me about like just reducing the risk involved, you know, with designing and building something like this. And they followed it all the way through. I presented the project to the Tetra volunteers every month, gave them progress, and it was a very easy process. So I think if any students or faculty wanted to start a Tetra Club, quite literally get involved with your local branch. You'll get emails with all the projects they're doing, and just take one on, and then get some students involved. I think it's pretty straightforward that way.
Thank you for that. That's a great suggestion.
And like Cooper,
the informalness.
Yeah, and Cooper mentioned like other student teams have so many resources.
Yeah.
Thank you,
Pardon?
Kyle. Sorry, Glenn, did you have a last point you wanted to?
No, I was just saying it was great that he brought that up, because just the informalness of saying, I'm going to go volunteer for the Tetra Society, and then getting a bunch of students together, you know, makes it a whole lot easier. And you know, you can, as a student, you can break down the doors and the barriers to getting lab time, faculty advisors, all that other stuff, a lot easier than somebody who's from the Tetra Society trying to get involved with those people from the outside of the community kind of thing. So very good suggestion. Yeah.
Thank you, everyone. Kyle and Cooper, thank you so much. I think you shared a lot with us and the team. We have to close off. We are 4 minutes past, but this session is recorded and will be posted on YouTube. And I'm sure your contact information is on the Tetra website if anyone wants to contact you. There is one quick question on the chat, but I'll answer it unless you guys have very opposing answers to my answer. Just right away, go ahead. So Violet is asking how to resolve the problem that if the projects could not finish in the school term, is every project charged by a combination of students and Tetra local volunteers? So what I do know is that similar with the local chapter and the student chapters, if it's not finished in the school term, it can kind of get carried over to the next term. And if students have graduated, new students will take it on. I see you guys are nodding. And it's the same with the Tetra local chapter. We do have students who work in the local chapter as well. So students not necessarily have to join a student club. They could join the local chapter if they want to work with seasoned volunteers. So there's so many options and so many opportunities in how you want to work with Tetra. So again, thank you so much, everyone. And Kyle and Cooper, thank you for your time, and thank you everyone for your questions and this great discussion we had. So I'm sure we'll have more in the future. So thanks again, and enjoy the rest of your weekend.